When I say the word OPPO, gaming phones is probably not the first thought that comes to your mind, right? Well, that changes with the OPPO K13 Turbo 5G and the OPPO K13 Turbo Pro 5G. Of course, I'm not going to say 5G for the rest of the video, that's for sure. But what I am impressed with is the fact that to stand out from the pack of other gaming phones, OPPO has actually built in a real cooling fan inside both these phones. Who would have thought that OPPO would go all out like this? 7 days later, here's what I think about both these phones. If you're watching me for the first time, I'm Arshad. This is Trakin Tech English, your destination for detailed, incisive gadget reviews. The first thing you notice is that both the phones look very identical, defined by that flat, boxy design and of course a very slim 8.31mm frame as well. Now OPPO uses a polycarbonate plus PMMA for the build, and yes, it's no glass and metal sandwich design, but I still felt like they're actually built very well. And especially if you look at it, the seams are pretty tight and it's been engineered well, and it's also got that gamery look which looks pretty impressive. And considering that the Turbo weighs 207 grams, the Turbo Pro weighs 208 grams despite having large 7000 mAh batteries inside them, and of course that extra built-in cooling fan, I felt like they're actually very comfortable to hold and use, especially for gamers who are going to be using it for long gaming sessions. And if you're holding it horizontally, then it definitely shouldn't be a problem because you've got two hands. Now the Pro comes in three shades: Midnight Maverick, Silver Night and Purple Phantom. Now the Turbo swaps one of those shades for a White Knight option. And the moment Tanishq laid his eyes on this purple variant of the K13 Turbo, he said it resembles the EVA 01. I don't understand, but if you know, you know. And yes, the most important aspect of the design, the fan's air duct, which has been integrated subtly into the design. I kind of like it actually. Now the difference between the two fans is the ring around them. The basic Turbo has this green colored luminous ring, whereas the Turbo Pro has a turbo breathing light around the cooling fan, and it's got 8 colors and it's got this really nice breathing animation when it's on. And for the most part, you can switch off the fans when not in use, you can switch them on when you want to use them, and you can also switch it to high settings so that it works at full speed. As for the durability, you get IPX6, IPX8 and IPX9. Of course, there's no dust resistance because of the open fans. Now both the phones have something called the DT Star D Plus display material, and on top of the display material you get crystal shield glass protection as well. And you also do get an IR blaster and a USB Type-C 2.0 port, which could have been USB 3.1 if you ask me. By the way, next time I'm going to be talking about the display, but before that, if you haven't hit that subscribe button already, do it. Now talking about the displays, both these phones have a 6.8-inch LTPS flat AMOLED panel made by BOE. This is also a 10-bit panel with 1.07 billion colors. You get 120Hz refresh rate, 1600 nits peak HBM brightness and a touch sampling rate of 240Hz. Now in everyday use, we actually tested both the phones' displays out, and it's punchy, it's sharp, and it actually handles HDR content really well. Now you do get HDR video playback on YouTube on both the phones, but with the K13 Turbo Pro you actually get Dolby Vision video playback, whereas with the K13 Turbo you get, HDR video, HDR10 video playback. And if you look at the HDR video tuning, then it has been done very well, especially with a very good control over the highlights and good control over the shadows as well. Unfortunately, we do not have any peak brightness number for the HDR mode, but you can tell for yourself that HDR content does look pretty bright, and it should suffice for most content that you're consuming or even the games that you'll be playing. As for outdoor visibility, it's actually pretty good. There is no problem with, the display being legible under direct sunlight because you get 1600 nits of peak brightness in HBM mode anyway. Also, when the displays go under 70 nits, you have a PWM dimming rating of 2160Hz, which is fantastic because you won't feel any eye strain, especially when you're using these high refresh rate displays in dark rooms. Now, of course, you also get dual speakers in stereo mode with OPPO's very own 300% ultra volume mode. Now, even at that highest 300% volume mode, we didn't notice any crackle, which is pretty good. Regardless, it gets very loud and sounds spacious too. Take a listen to it for yourself. Now you also get a proper X-axis linear vibration motor in both the phones, and it's got O-haptics as well. Now of course the vibration tuning is not the most flagship grade, but it's still pretty tight and crisp. And finally you also get a proper optical in-display fingerprint scanner, which makes it very easy to unlock these phones and use them. Alright, now time to talk about the performance, which is what all of you are waiting for. With the K13 Turbo Pro, what you get is the ADAS Gen 4 with LPDDR5X RAM type and UFS 4.0 storage, whereas with the Turbo what you get is the MediaTek Dimensity 8450, LPDDR5X RAM type, and UFS 3.1 storage. Now, of course, we ran Antutu and Geekbench first on both these phones, and the scores were on par with Snapdragon 8 Gen 4 phones and 8450, and it's actually very, very good. As for the CPU stability, the K13 Turbo actually offered better stability than the Turbo Pro. And of course, it goes without saying that when it comes to the GPU stability, the 3D Mark wildlife systems that we ran, the Turbo Pro actually does better than the Turbo. You not only get better GPU stability, you also get a better best loop score and a higher average FPS. Now, we also tried BGMI on both these phones, and they can actually run at 120 FPS. And what we noticed is that with the Turbo, we were getting about 110 to 120 FPS depending on the in-game circumstances. But with the Turbo Pro, you get 120 FPS chipakke. Now, of course, the game that we prefer playing is Genshin Impact, and here are the scores for you to see on your screen right now. And talking about the temps, both the phones didn't even come close to the 45 degrees Celsius mark at all times, and that's thanks to the inbuilt active cooling fan plus the 7000mm square vapor cooling chamber and the 19000mm square ultra large graphite sheet. In our experience, what we notice is that the active fans can actually bring down the temperatures by about say 2 to 3 degrees at best. That said, if you add an external Peltier fan attachment to the phone, which will of course add weight to the phone as well, you should see temperatures going down even more. Regardless, I still find this an interesting solution, and that could maybe get better in next generations. I would give it good marks on trying to attempt something new. But one thing I like about the fans is that despite running at 18,000 RPM, it runs pretty quiet for the most part. We could barely hear the whir of the fans. Now let me talk about some gaming specific features, and there are some interesting ones. For example, the bypass charging. It works well and the phone does not get hot even when using it. One thing we also noticed while playing with the phones is the touch response seemed to be pretty good. Alright, now time to talk about the battery life, and it's good. I have good things to say about the battery life on both these phones. Now both these phones have a 7000 mAh battery inside them, and we were consistently getting about 10 hours of screen on time with like a mixed usage of social apps, a bunch of social apps by the way, a bit of BGMI gaming, and of course a lot of video streaming as well. By the way, OPPO also says that these 7000 mAh batteries are meant for 5-year long usage, so that's the battery longevity that they're promising. Now both the phones with their 80-watt chargers actually take about 52 minutes for a full charge, which is really good too. For connectivity, with the Pro, what you get is support for Wi-Fi 7, and with the regular Turbo, what you get is support for Wi-Fi 6. And with the Pro, you get support for Bluetooth 6.0, whereas you get Bluetooth 5.4 support with the basic Turbo. And the good thing about both these phones is that unlike a lot of phones in this price range now, you do actually get support for LDAC and LSDC codec, which I really appreciate, honestly. Alright, now time to talk about the cameras on these gaming phones, and if you take a look at the specs, you will notice that it's largely similar and it's there for you to see on the screen right now. The only difference between the two is definitely the different ISPs that they use, and therefore we have some thoughts and opinions on the kind of pictures that these phones capture. Let me show you them. Now talking about the primary camera in both daylight and low light, what we found is both the phones take similar photos, but the K13 Turbo Pro captures more details. When it comes to color science, the K13 Turbo Pro takes slightly muted colors, and the K13 Turbo actually takes slightly warmer colors. Skin tones, while not accurate on both, we actually do prefer the K13 Turbo here over the K13 Turbo Pro. The HDR tuning on both is decent. However, we found out that the Turbo Pro has slightly better shadow retrieval. And when it comes to clicking human subjects against the light, both have a visible bloom around the face. Now, portraits also come out to be decent with good enough semantic segmentation, and the background blur also does not look unnatural. The portraits are actually pretty good. Selfies in both daylight and low light have decent details and no over sharpening with decent skin tone rendition as well. Selfie portraits were also fine and also very similar to the primary camera portrait shot in terms of the technicalities, because you get a fairly decent semantic segmentation and a natural looking background blur as well. Now with the primary camera, you can record at 4K 60 FPS and we get good video and audio quality from both with decent stabilization too. The front facing camera can only do 1080p 30 FPS and the video quality is also fine. Anyway, take a look at it for yourself and let me know what you guys think.
Hey guys, right now I'm recording a 4K 60 FPS video from both the OPPO K13 Turbo. Right now I'm recording with the OPPO K13 Turbo Pro and the K13 Turbo.
Alright, now talking about the software, you get ColorOS 15 out of the box, which is based on Android 15, and you only get about 2 + 3 years of software update promise from OPPO, which definitely should have been higher. And this is your classic ColorOS experience. Now classic, but also modern in terms of design, because what you get are, Flux themes, live activities, and a bunch of really cool features, which make it really cool to use as well. Especially when you look at the animations, it has got parallel animations and it's smooth, it's fast, it's very responsive. But you do get a lot of bloatware apps, and a bunch of recommendations at places that you would not even expect. So you have to be careful of that. However, all of these bloatware apps can be uninstalled, which is of course a good thing. But now let's talk about AI, and there are some interesting AI features too. For example, you get AI Best Face and AI Recompose, and then you have your classics like the AI Unblur, AI Eraser, AI Reflection Remover. We also have AI features related to assisting your phone calls like AI Call Summary. Of course, this is what we've come to expect from a great ColorOS 15 experience. Definitely better than many other funny OSs out there. Alright, now for the prices. The K13 Turbo actually starts at 24,999 after discounts, of course. And that's like a limited period offer, and the sale starts on the 18th. So if you want to snag it at that price, you might have to pre-book it. And for the K13 Turbo Pro, it starts at 34,999 and the phone is already on sale, so you can buy it if you want to right now. And anyway, for the phones and Oppo's general direction with the K series this year, it's definitely been an interesting one, because with the K13, I found that to be one of the easiest recommendable phone under 20,000 rupees. In fact, I recently recommended it to somebody as well. And with these two phones, the K13 Turbo and the K13 Turbo Pro, it's kind of refreshing to see Oppo try to do something different in a space that they've generally stayed away from. Of course, gaming. But of the two phones, I would say that the K13 Turbo is more value for money, especially considering that it's not too different from the Turbo Pro in terms of the kind of usage that you get, and of course the price delta that exists between the two. So which one of these two phones will you pick? Let me know in the comments. And do you want any comparisons or any other videos with these phones? Let me know that as well. I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, keep tracking and stay safe.